Yes.
Okay. All right, I want to thank everyone for coming. Every year we do, since my mother's session, we do usually a breakfast. This year we had a slight change of plans. We got to have dinner. We could blame the airlines for the flight changes. But no. So the reason I know different people like do different things for yard sites. But one of my mother's many wonderful traits was that she was very into and making sure that people were taken care of, making sure that people had food. You would never go hungry, as I've said in previous years, if you were looking to my mother for help. Among many other things she did, she was a nurse. She helped people in many different ways. You know, this is, I think, something that between the Torah, which she certainly dedicated her life to, and the Sarkin part of it, and feeding people, is a very fitting yearly tribute. On that note, I want just to thank my sister, came from LA with my aunt, and my sister's whole family, and my brother-in-law, Daniel. So thank you for joining us again, and everyone else for coming. I'm honored. We had a COVID hiatus for 1 year, and then we had I think a wedding hiatus of 1 year. It's one of the weddings. Yes, so we had a hiatus 1 year for COVID and a hiatus 1 year for a wedding scheduling conflict. So Stein was not able to be here. But other than that, it's I think Stein's one decision not to come for my mother's funeral, or what's it called? It's paying dividends for years to come. I just want to. I know that this is like my one opportunity to show my Hakaras Baravim. I try to show my Hakaras not Baravim, so as much as he does not let me, but certainly now I have the pulpit, so I get to show my Hakaras to my Rebbe. Last year, in December, Stein called me, and he said, we're going to have a small daf yomi for a few people. We're going to try it out. We're going to see if it works. We're going to do like this thing online where you'll just all log in. So it's all about them. You don't have to worry, long schedules after a long day. And we're going to do this. And after we had a few days of other, I don't remember what those first ones were called. We landed on Zoom sometime in the beginning of January 2020. When the new daf cycle started, as with many things, Stein was the forerunner of Zoom before the rest of the country and the world caught on to it. But we started learning daf on Zoom. A few dozen guys who were doing mostly in New York, but around the country. And then when COVID started, so then other shiurim that Stein gives went online as well. So to the point where at one time I was trying to come on the middle of the day one. I was at least, I would say, a minimum of 2 hours a day learning. This chus to learn my Rabbi, on different shiurim. Morning call, we start the day off, end the day with daf. But it's an amazing thing. He makes himself available really to anyone who wants to learn and anyone who wants to go to shiurim. And the fact that I have the chus now for being close with him for so many years, and that he comes special to give a shiur, which I know is not easy for him, even though he does not make me feel bad about it and thanks me for giving him time to learn on the plane. But it ultimately takes a lot out of his day and a lot out of his schedule. He's flying back tonight. He flew here this morning. And I just want to thank him for the learning, for the help, and for my entire family, and for everything that he gives over. And it's my great chus to be able to introduce Rabbi Stein. He's going to speak on vacation.
Guys on the Zoom are laughing at me that have to play Rabbi. Rishus Moradasut, I have to behave myself because now there's a Moradasut. So I can't say whatever I want. But I was thinking on the plane that I think the last one I gave, I made it into the Purim. I made it into the Purim video from the show. My goal again in the next 45 minutes is to make it again onto the Purim video. But I don't know. I'll try.
You said you're watching it with some shopping.
Correct. I don't know if we'll find something of that level, but we'll try.
Or much higher.
Oh, no, I raised it too high. Okay, so we'll see where it goes. I just want to say it's not my place to talk about the Rav, but I only met a few times. But his reputation precedes him, and the Olam should know that there's a big source that this community must have, that they resorted to that type of Rav. I also want to say for Rabbim, so that to discuss the Rabbi Liner, who we go way back with, and when my Hakaras Atay never ends. When my father was nifter about 78 years ago, very helpful to our family. So I want to say for Rabbim, Shekayach, and the Olam in this community should use him. I don't know if he wants me to say that part, but yes. Nishitaka, continuing as Avodas HaKodesh. Mrs. Ikovic, Aleh Shalom. So I only got to meet a few times, but her pride and joy was Elio. She just wanted him to be a good Erlich Yid and continue in the ways of that she put into him, she inculcated into him, and Baruch Hashem he does. And I think I've said this before, but it's good to say it again. When you have a yard site, so what is it all about? It's about the legacy that was left over. So you get to think about yourself, like what's going to be when it comes. It's inevitable. Everybody's time comes. You want to think, okay, what's going to be my legacy? So a little bit of a mushal is Elio's legacy in Farakwe is that I'm still giving shiurim that he started whatever 15 years ago. Sometimes I'm not so happy when I'm on the way to share thing up, but Lamaisa, a couple of the shiurim are still going, and that's what it is. You can leave one place and you can leave it a better place. He left Farakwe, came to Phoenix, and he made Phoenix a whole lot better place too. Okay, enough of all the love and all that. So now we can get to the halacha part. Okay, so usually we go with more of a controversial subject. That's usually the mahalach because that's what Elio likes. But this time seems to be like not too controversial, just straight halachas of traveling. So I know there were a bunch of things mentioned that I should try and discuss. I just don't know how much time, and I don't know how far we go with each subject. So I know here we go with TV shows. There are TV shows where they let the man talk and then they hit like a button and they say, okay, stop, next subject, right? So if that's what I'm doing, so then just raise your hand and say next subject, and we'll move on. Really, and of course. If anybody needs to leave, I will not be offended if anybody leaves.
We should turn up the volume so I don't hear how chatting really goes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we'll just I don't know. I'm not sure where to go with this. So really, just let me know whichever way you want me to go, and hopefully I'll know something in order to give it over or to share it. And also, please ask questions and please speak up. Rather cover less ground and everybody fight and then everybody be quiet and cover more ground, which means usually when they're quiet means I believe they're not really listening. So, okay, so please speak up whenever necessary. So just planning a trip. Let's start with planning a trip. So there's a few of these questions asked. First of all, when you're planning a trip, so can you go to a place without a minion? Or can you lechatchila go to on a trip without a minion? All right. So what? Can you go to a place that can you go to a place? Listen, yeah, okay. Yeah, so can you go to a place without a minion? So this is actually, since we're supposed to do controversy here, I'm going to try and compare as many cases to COVID as we can. Okay, so like this would be yours to that. So the chiyuv of minion came up in COVID a lot. Right? Do we have to make minyan? Do we not have to make minyan? Should we make minyan? Not minyan. Lashon and Shulchan Aruch is that yishtadol. That's the lashon is yishtadol, which means you should try and daven with a minyan. So if you go with that, so I mean I try to do a lot of things and I fail at doing what I try to do. So I could try to go to minyan. I tried to make a vacation to go where there's a minyan, but I didn't try so hard. But I tried, and that's enough. That's if you go with the lashon of Shulchan Aruch, just trying would be enough. However, Moshe Feinstein writes in the Chuvas, and he says that that's not the way to understand the Shulchan Aruch, and he says Ishtadel, it doesn't, without getting into that whole into that whole what Ramosha means, but he said Yishtadl means it's a chiyuv. We have a requirement to daven with a minyan. So therefore, you are not allowed to go. So according to that, you would not be allowed to go someplace without a minyan. Shevet HaLevi says the Ferish that you cannot plan a vacation where there's no minyan. However, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says, and the Shevet HaLevi really hints to this too, that if you need it, certainly if you need it for Torah purposes, then that would be Torah purposes would be Doicha Minyan, which is a little bit of a dangerous thing to say, because that means that if you're learning well, and you have to stop to daven Ma'ariv with a minyan, then you don't have to daven Ma'ariv with a minyan if you go with that. But the halacha is very clear that we do nowadays stop learning in order to daven with a minyan. Right? But if you need it for, like Lamashal, if I had to come here and miss a minyan, should I do that? Should I not do that? I don't know. That would have to be weighed. But I think Baruch Hashem, I don't plan on missing any minyanim. But you have to weigh each case. Basically, the way Rav Shlomo Zalman says, you have to weigh each case. And if you need to go to some place without a minyan because that's going to help you, then he says you're allowed to. Certainly if it's going to help your health, then it's allowed. I think even the Shevet HaLevi would say that. But if it's going to help you grow spiritually, in whichever way you think that you're going to need to grow, then that would be okay. Which is the regular way we should all be. That everything that we do should be to grow in Yiddishkeit. So for whatever reason, somebody feels that they need to go someplace that's beautiful, this, that, they're not going to have a minyan, then that would be okay. You just have to weigh the pros and the cons. Yeah. Correct. So we're going to get to that. But the question is, are you allowed to put yourself in a situation where you're not going to be chayiv? Meaning you're living someplace where there is a minyan, and then you're specifically putting yourself in a situation where you're not going to have a minyan. So it's not as bad as if there's a minyan across the street from your house and you're just not going. It's certainly not as bad as that. But you're putting yourself in a situation where you're not going to be able to go to a minyan. So you have to know. You have to weigh who the vacation is for. And sometimes whether the spouse wants a specific area. Again, everything should be done as long as you're doing it l'shem shamayim. That's what it is. Now, if you are going to be someplace without a minyan, you're supposed to daven at the same time as the minyan that you daven. But at least as long as you're davening with a minyan at some specific time, then that's okay. Now, the question is, if you come to Phoenix and you daven, let's say, in Far Rockaway at 8, so do you daven at 8 in Phoenix, or do you daven at 6? Thank you. Right. So which one is that? I don't know exactly. I think you daven 8. That's what you would say, because for the Rebbe Shalom, there's no difference in time. Which then brings us to, I'm jumping from one subject to the next. Which then brings us to the some were asking about the going to Hawaii for Shabbos. So usually I get my news. Baruch Hashem, I have a smartphone, but it's all filtered. So how do I get my news? I get my news from questions that are asked. So I know when Dan's Deals posts a Hawaii sale, when I start getting the questions about how do I keep Shabbos in Hawaii, I know that he posted a sale on Hawaii. If I get questions on Amazon Prime Day about a specific kitchen gadget that needs Tfilas Kalim, I know that he posted that it's the whatever. So that's how the information goes. So I think I got one Hawaii shuttle lately, so I don't think there's been any sales, but okay, people from here must be going to Hawaii. I don't think it's negated to too many people, but I don't know how many learned Daf Yomi, but it was the source. There's only one place in Shas that discusses, and the Gemara really doesn't discuss it. It's the Balamar. It was a Rishon discusses on the Gemara Rosh Hashanah that says that the moon disappears for 24 hours every month. Right? Around Rosh Chodesh time, the moon disappears for 24 hours. So the Gemara there says that it's 18 hours east of Yerushalayim. I think it's 18 east and 6 west, or maybe the other way. It's 6 one way and 18 the other, which makes 24, right? So the Balamor, based on that, says that the international date line is 16 hours east of Yerushalayim, or the other way around, 6 hours, right? Which there are those that are chaylik and say, no, Yerushalayim is the center of the world. The Gesher HaChaim, Rabbi Tukachinsky, his opinion was that no, Yerushalayim is the middle of the world, so the international date line is exactly 12 hours opposite of Yerushalayim. Do we get into the date line is basically the day, since the world is a circle, the day has to change. At some point, we have to change, right? So the Chazon Ish went with this Balamor, which comes out that it goes right through land. It goes right through land, meaning the Gesher HaChaims does not go through land, as far as I know. The regular international date line, which is a third opinion, which nobody in Halacha goes with the regular standard international date line that the UN, I guess, uses. Nobody goes with that halachically. There is one opinion that goes pretty close, but either way, according to the Chazon Ish, you could theoretically there's a date line that would go, let's say, right here. So that means you could start Shabbos. You could start Shabbos right here and then walk across the street and Shabbos is over. Right? I don't know if anybody want to do that, but it would be an interesting way to keep Shabbos. Right? But okay, the Chazon Ish says you don't do that, you move it over. Either way, Hawaii comes out as a machlokes when Hawaii comes out as a machlokes according to these two opinions of when Shabbos is. According to the Chazon Ish, Shabbos in Hawaii is the Shabbos that they have. The one that they keep as Saturday is according to the Chazon Ish. According to Rabbi Michal Tukachinsky, it's the opposite. So therefore, I think what most poskim say to do is that what? Friday. Yeah. So Friday. It's right, not Sunday. Friday. Take Friday. It's Friday. So therefore, on the extra day, you're supposed to keep Shabbos. You're supposed to keep Shabbos, but you only have to keep the rice. You don't have to keep the Rabbanan because it's a suffix the Rabbanan. You don't have to keep Shabbos. It might be kedai just to go to Hawaii for that, just to know what's the rice on Shabbos and what's the Rabbanan. You really.
Is that just the way the mice? If someone had to be in Hawaii, who really has to be there for whatever reason for a long time? That's what it is. What will the mice say? Every time.
That's what we say. I mean, if they live there.
Yeah. Keep their rice on Friday.
I have a friend that actually lived there. His family still lives there, and I meant to ask him what they do, and I forgot.
In Japan, you can say the other way around.
Japan would be the other way around.
Keep Shabbos on Friday.
That was in Shanghai. That was the problem. That was Shanghai. That was.
No, Japan is Sunday.
Shanghai was-
It's the other way. It's Sunday. It's Sunday.
Shabbos, Japan, it's-
Oh, I don't know.
Sunday.
Japan is not an issue either. It's only
Yeah,
Kobe.
Kobe, Japan.
Yeah, only Kobe, but not the whole Japan. Yeah. Okay. Whatever it is, that's if anybody's flying to Hawaii, which I imagine is easier from Phoenix than from New York, so then you're supposed to keep 2 days.
How many stars do you have to make if you go there for Pesach?
Yeah, I don't know. Are there any programs?
They have that. They have a program.
What do they do?
I don't care what they do. I want to know what they do.
I don't know. What's it hurt? 3 opportunities?
Well,
Is it responsibility
You don't just go with
to go to
the
Hawaii for Shabbos?
Do we not go to the Chazan? We go with both.
We do. Why are we not
It's why I don't know why we not machriya that way.
Did we look at it as 50-50 or were we one is bigger than one?
No, it's a machlokes between two gedolei poskim in that generation. So it's not. Huh? Yeah, so they're right. So then they did it. So
And you kid, what would you say to Kippur then?
what?
What would you say for somebody in Hawaii?
Don't go. That's what I would say. That's the compound. It's a classic compound. Right? But no, that's what the poskim do. I forgot who the last person that I handled this with spoke to. I don't remember which Rabbi spoke to, who said you should not go to Hawaii. You should not go to Hawaii
ever. For Shabbos.
ever. For Shabbos, not
For Shabbos.
for Shabbos. You should. You go from Sunday to Friday. Fine. He says you should not go for Shabbos. I thought that was a little bit strict.
Sunday to Thursday.
Whatever, but I thought it was a little strict to say that you're not allowed to go to Hawaii for Shabbos. If you decide you want to keep Shabbos as a form of Hawaii, but I guess you're putting yourself into a derabbanan. So that was I don't know who.
Every time Rabbi Michal and Chazon Ish argue, we split
No,
the
but
difference.
no. But the Chazon Ish has the Balamor, so it's a Risha. Okay, whatever. That's I don't know if it's good.
No, because there's no Gemara, no Shulchan Aruch.
It's not.
I'm saying, so every time they honestly do that, if there's no there.
Yes, yeah.
They're arguing because they're arguing about the Tasa.
Well, put on it's all the Rabbanan.
It's supposed to work.
That's what showed the previous. They said that if we should go by the city that they come from. You don't buy a shul in the city that you're in. Let's say you're landing there for the meeting. You want to have your time to the time of the meeting. You go by the time you're meeting back at home or something in the neighborhood.
Oh, you can do it. So that you can do either one. You can go with any minion that you want. But my sense, it should be the minion that dominant normally, but you can't, and you do it as any time, which you're going to say, okay, so Borough Park is minyanim and Williamsburg is minyanim the whole time. Okay, so I don't know how that works, but Shtibel of minyanim, I don't know how that works. Okay, so continuing the planning of the trip. Yeah.
Well, I'm planning a trip. We could take a little bit. You take a Friday afternoon flight out of Los Angeles to Australia and land on Sunday morning.
Can you do that?
Does he look anyhow?
Because you're gonna be on a plane the entire time.
You're gonna cross over. You're gonna skip Shabbos. That's what you're gonna do.
That's giving Shabbos.
I mean, you're gonna have it for a little bit. I mean, Me'ikar Adin, you're okay. I mean, you can't say that it's awesome to do that. You're not in the tchum. You're way above the tchum, so there's no tchum issues.
Wow.
Right? I don't see how you could say Me'ikar Adin is awesome. I mean, people are doing that with the ships that which we're supposed to discuss. Right?
Did you watch Netflix on the flight?
Yeah, I have to come up with something to you. Right? I have to come up with something cool. Yeah. Okay, so planning the trip. So the ships. Yeah. So this we can tie it to COVID also. So if you're going on a ship, the Gemara says that you're not allowed to start a cruise from 3 days before Shabbos. That's a lashon of the Gemara. It's different Rishayim have what the pshat is. The way we pass them is that the reason why you can't go, which is a lesson in having covered Shabbos, is that you're seasick, you're still going to be seasick on Shabbos. So you can't go on Wednesday. Well, most say you can't go on Wednesday. The Gra says Thursday. The Gra says Shabbos is included in those 3 days. So you really can't go from Wednesday and or Thursday. So that's the Iker Din. The Pais can say, that nowadays they didn't have ships the size of the ships that we have nowadays. So therefore, they don't really move so much. I was never on one of those ships. I hope never to be on any of those ships. But they say the Pais can say nowadays that those ships are okay. So I think that is the psak. That is the psak that you can go on it. But there are persons that say you shouldn't because there are a decent amount of. There is such a thing on these ships as somebody getting seasick. So to do that, what? I don't know. You got to know yourself. You got to mean. Would it help for you? Yeah. So this also gets into a corona shayla. Can you take as a preventative? You can take it on Shabbos. But by the way, I forgot to say a disclaimer. Whatever I say here, it goes with the Rav's. Whatever the Rav says, the Rav has kedima over obviously anything that I'm saying. The contemporary issue is: can you take a COVID vaccine on a Friday? Right? So okay, I wasn't going. I thought it would take 10 seconds for somebody to say it. Yeah, so can you take the COVID vaccine on a Friday? I had it last week. I was supposed to go Friday for a COVID vaccine with my son. My son said, let's go get it. I said, okay. But I said, no, I'm not doing it on Friday. And he said, why not? I said, because you might get sick. My son was so sick on Shabbos, it totally shot his Shabbos. So
it's only because the Rav says you might get sick.
Could be.
On Shabbos.
Could be. Could be. But I didn't see anybody say that you can't take the COVID vaccine on a Friday. But it is something to think about because if you know that and many people do get sick when they take the COVID vaccines or the boosters, second or third, whichever company that it is. I would say it's probably better not to take it on a Friday.
If you know you're going to get sick, why is it going to
You're going to get sick. Okay, so then that starts the whole vaccine conversation.
I know. No, I never heard this before.
What, this halacha or that you get sick?
You know you're going to get sick so much.
You don't know you get sick. There's a chashash you're going to get sick.
The chashash is so much.
But you might get
Enough people get sick. Yeah, enough people get sick.
So then why is it?
Well, so far I haven't taken it. As long as I have antibodies, I don't feel like I'm in a rush. But that's my okay. Let's move on. But anyway, so a few halachas that people may not be aware of. The more popular shalas that people ask about are not halacha. They get scared when you get into what we call heebie-jeebie halachas, which is usually Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, things that from Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, like closing up a window or going out with a girl the same name as the mother-in-law and the father, all those things. So there's a few things that Rabbi Yehuda Chassid says about travel that many people are not aware of. First thing is he says, I don't know if it's the first thing he says, but one of the major things that he says is you are not allowed to polish your shoes the day you're leaving on a trip. Okay? I don't know if anybody polishes their shoes before, but if you do polish your shoes, if you want to go to Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, then you don't polish your shoes the day of the trip. I don't know the pshat. Okay, I have no idea what the pshat is, but that's Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. So if you're very mindful,
It's gonna get dusty. You want to trip.
so it's a
What's the
waste.
point of it?
So it's a waste. Okay, I hear. That's one Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. Another one is that once you leave for the trip and you forget something at home, Rabbi Yehuda Chassid said you are not allowed to go back home.
What?
But that's what he says.
That's
So okay, I don't know if those that aren't makir Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, not makir Rabbi Yehuda Chassid.
What is that? Meaning, how much? Meaning, I remember being yeshiva, you did sheva or shledas.
Where do you draw the line about keeping Rabbi Yehuda Chassid?
Yeah, what is it?
That could be a share from now till next Yotzei. I mean, but that's.
They forgot. They said you can't name your kid Shmuel, doesn't it?
He has all
That's
sorts
my
of.
name. My name is Shmuel. I guess my mother wasn't.
Listen, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just bringing up things that people are not aware of. People are not aware of. Okay, but I personally am not too makbid. I mean, you always go with what the Rabbi Yehuda said, that Rabbi Yehuda Chassid was only for his grandchildren. So, which could very well be that there are many grandchildren. Maybe there's a lot of grandchildren out there, Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. But you can always rely on that opinion.
We can't really say that Rabbi Yehuda Chassid should put the upstairs and people.
You know, he's even if you go earlier than that, I think it's another view that says it. Tshuva brings it in, I think it was a Kuf Tazayin, in Yeridea. He says, so everybody's worried about marrying off their son to a girl with the same name as the wife. He says, what about the Gemara that says don't marry your daughter off to an Amoritz? What about that one? Nobody cares about that one. That's a Gemara. Okay, that sounds like something that a contemporary rabbi would say, but this was said a few hundred years ago. Okay, whatever it is, but that's what he says. Another something to keep in mind when traveling is that the Mishnah Berurah says that you should never travel without tefillin, even if you're only traveling for the day. L'mashal myself, I hope to be back in New York for Shabbos, but I didn't bring my talis, but I did bring my tefillin. Even though it's
Even if it's not overnight.
Even if it's not anywhere, he says really travel anywhere. So the question is, so when I go to a chassan in Lakewood, I don't bring my tefillin. So why am I makbid here and not there? I don't know.
Today, every shul has a spare pair.
So right. But the question is, you're taking the flight and you have no idea where you're going to end up. So then I brought my tefillin. But I don't know why we're not makbid on this when you go like from city to city. So we're gonna get the two goes to the.
No, I'm saying, is that enough for me now? Because of there or not? What do you bring?
I would say the Ikara did, like you're saying, that nowadays there's yeshivas in every exit in the Garden State. I mean, so you're not going almost every exit. So you're not going to be too far from tefillin. So nowadays, again, there's a few things where contemporary times have changed the halacha, like we said with the ship.
But even in this day, wouldn't a yid give you a pair of stones?
I can tell you, the one up you on that, you can take it tefillin without permission.
So I'm saying, so what's the Shabbos? That you're going to be in a place with no yid in at all?
Again, back then, when you traveled from city to city, it could take a day or two. You don't know where you're going to end up. It's supposed to get there fast.
Hey, she doesn't like to use other people's tefillin.
Because
many times it says that the size, so people aren't here, so that
maybe the Rabbi is saying that maybe you're going to have to put on somebody else's tefillin. It's not going to sit you properly, and you're not going to get the mitzvah properly. I've seen that from He says it about Nabara.
Some people don't want to buy tefillin; they want to be selling from other people. So
yeah. Okay, so that's that. Now, okay, I don't know which. I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you be on a train on Shabbos?
Can you be on a train? You can be on a train on Shabbos. Yeah. You can be on a ship on Shabbos. You can be on a train on Shabbos.
Bus, car?
You're on there before, we're talking about going on there before Shabbos.
Let's say you're on it before Shabbos, you stay in the car on Shabbos.
Well, you're talking about tchum issues, not tchum issues, there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of issues that can come up. Theoretically, are you allowed to go on an escalator on Shabbos? Can you go on an elevator on Shabbos? The elevator is worse than an escalator. Escalator seemingly doesn't slow up based on the weight that goes on. That's what they say. I never experimented with it. Can you go on an escalator? Some say this is a hotel issue too. Sometimes hotels have these big escalators.
You
That's
guy
the only way to go.
he keeps 72 and needs to go outside of town. You can go right. You open the door for him, put him in the car, you drop him off.
If it's going there anyways, I'll tell you where the Shiloh comes up. The Shiloh comes up where people have to go out of town. Usually it's in places for therapy. So they want to go from the hotel to visit somebody who's in whatever. I don't know, that's the Shiloh that comes up that's been asked to me a few times. And the hotel has a shuttle that goes straight from the hospital or whatever it's called to the hotel. The guy is not driving for you. He's driving there anyways. It doesn't cost any money. It's in the Tchum. Can you get on that shuttle and isn't that the Me'ikar Adin, you're allowed to do that. Me'ikar Adin, it's fine. Because the guy's not doing it.
Would be the same thing.
What?
New York City subway would be the same
Subways would be the same thing. Just how you're going to get on there. So you gotta jump.
Like everything else.
How much money is fine?
So that, but the place can say not to do this. The place can say not to go on trains and escalators and all these things because of and it's not Shabbos. It's just not Shabbos.
If you're wear a baseball hat, if you're an It's the same thing.
The issue that the place can discuss is the extra weight that's in the car. Are you making it burn more gas? Which you ask AAA, it's for sure. For sure, they say any extra weight. So that's going to make the car work harder. To Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach in Shemir Shabbos because it really is not so concerned with that at least when it comes to elevators. But so theoretically, if you do it right, then it's okay. It's not unless it's a desperate situation. Then like in these situations where somebody's going to visit a relative in therapy and they need somebody that's going there to be with them and to be mechazik them, and then on Shabbos the only way to get there is to this. Then in that situation, again you have to ask the shayla because every situation is different. But there's certainly makom to be makel in that situation. Depending where you're going and how you go about doing it, then it would be okay. But again, those shaylas have to be asked on an individual basis.
If you want to go on like a 4-day Amtrak, Thursday to Sunday, your weight is not going to affect Amtrak.
No, trains, they say it doesn't affect. It doesn't say.
So you could be on it on Shabbos.
The ship, half the stories in Shas happened on a ship. Half happened in a bathhouse, the other half happened on a ship, right? So I'm saying, and a lot of times they were on. I was on Shabbos. Right? It was on Shabbos, so they certainly traveled on Shabbos. Okay, you just have to know. You have to know how to do it. You have to know how to do it properly. Again, getting more to practical. Kashrus, that's what you do. Kashrus. Okay, so kashrus when you go to a hotel or on a ship. So I don't know to what extent we should do the Hilchos Kashrus. I find that there's something that I think that people are lacking in their understanding of Hilchos Kashrus, understandably so, because it's complicated. But when you really boil it down, no pun intended on that, but when you get down to it, it's really a fairly simple rule that you have to know, at least for Kashrus, which is, and I'll say it in Lashon Kodesh, and then we'll try and explain it, which is basically, it's ein b'liya yaitze mikli lekli v'lo rotav, meaning something that's absorbed in metal that's not with food, meaning if you take this plate, so this plate had this wonderful meat on it. Now this plate has meat absorbed in the plate, right? If I go take dairy and put it on this plate, then the taste from the meat is going to go into the taste from the plate from the meat is going to go into the dairy, right? Let's say I take another plate under this plate, right? We're talking about hot, all hot, right? I take another plate, right, and I put it under here. So now I have hot meat in this plate and hot dairy in this plate, and I put them right next to each other in a ship's oven or in a hotel oven. Both are covered. What would you say is the din there? So the din there is very clear that it's mutter. The food will be mutter. Again, hot treif or hot fleishik, hot meat, right here. Hot dairy, right here. Each one closed, right? Then, meaning if they put the actual dairy against the plate, that's not going to work. We're talking about where there's a plate here and a plate here, right? Meat in here, dairy in here. If you put both of them, pile them up in an oven, boiling hot, the food is going to be kosher, right? I am religious. Okay, I am religious. I like to think that I'm religious. Okay, what? Even if it's wet, as long as it's closed, right?
It's not wet.
That costs. So now it's below right, meaning if there would be liquid in between this plate and the plate that I have under it. No, oh, that's what you meant. I thought you meant inside.
No.
Liquid in between.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant liquid inside. If there's liquid in between, which there very rarely is, then the taste would go through. You have to have emunas chachamim and bitachim in the chachamim that they knew. I mean, how did they know this thousands of years ago? Whatever it is, how they knew the science of this, I don't know. But that's your rule that enables you to cook dairy in a meat oven, and it allows you to cook kosher in a treif oven.
Even at home?
They're both. Yeah. I mean, the condensation. So Rabbi Lion is asking a good question. See, so when you take something frozen and you take cold and you mix it with when it hits heat, then there's going to be condensation in between. Whether that condensation is enough liquid is a machlokes in the achronim, whether that's considered enough. Does it mamish have to be liquid, or just condensation is enough to make the taste transfer? Obviously, it would be better not to, but there's an eitzah for that, because what you do is you just wrap it again. And then the condensation will l'chayra. I don't know. Maybe yeah, maybe no. Yeah. So no. Let's get it. It's important I think it's important for us to understand this, because people are busy double wrapping and triple wrapping and this and that. It doesn't have to be. If you're let's stick with a regular oven. If you're cooking milchiks, dairy, you're cooking in a meat oven, and the oven is clean, relatively clean, meaning there's no actual chunks of meat in there, right? And your dairy is covered, one cover, that's enough. You don't need to double cover it. What? So I'm just thinking, because we're dealing with tarfus now, so I want to just deal with the cover, right?
Simple cover or
1 second. So no, just one cover. Does it
have to be sealed, or
No, it doesn't have to be sealed tight. It might have to be sealed tight for another reason, which we'll get to in a couple minutes, hopefully. But as long as it's covered so that no taste, no steam is escaping from the food, that's really enough. But when you're putting your food into a treif oven, like on an airplane, right? Or you're going on a ship, you want them to warm up your food. So now in that oven, they're cooking open treif. And if you only have one cover, then what happens is the treif goes up to the roof of the oven and then comes down into your cover. Now makes your cover treif, and then that cover goes and makes your food treif. That's why you need to have two covers. Because what does two covers do for you? Right, the outside cover is going to become treif, but then that's not going to transfer taste to the inside cover, because there's no liquid, hopefully, in between those two covers, and therefore you're covered. Yeah, that was a pun intended. Okay, that wasn't the cover, but okay. Right.
What about Stein? That we say it. Is it just as common?
It's as far as I know, as when it should be. I don't know. But on all, even liquid. Okay, so then we get into whether nowadays whether there's in our ovens, whether we even have any of the steam, even if you cook it open. But those, I mean, for safety's sake, you can't rely on sending something to a treifa kitchen in a ship or to a hotel. As opposed to what?
They had a real cover.
Who had
hard covering when they had
back then? How do we know that silver foil is not?
I don't know now.
Oh, so the price can seem to say that silver foil is okay. Parchment paper is the issue. Parchment paper is that considered a cover? Because what happens is people will by mistake take a dairy cooking, what do you call it? Cookie sheet, let's say dairy, they put a parchment paper on it, and then, well, actually usually goes the other way. They take a meat pan and they put parchment paper, and then they put dairy on there. And then does that parchment paper block the taste from going from the cookie into the what?
Why not?
Because parchment paper, I think, is meant to be, porous, right? And the child is also plastic. Do you need sous vide? A sous vide hit, the sous vide craze hit over here?
Yep.
Sous vide, sous vide. No, not S, sous vide. Yeah. I wasn't the first one. This meat is from sous vide. Okay, do you need two different sous vides? You need a dairy sous vide, that would be for, I don't know what you're cooking in there. And meat sous vide. The first time I heard about sous vide, so they said, yeah, it makes you meat so soft like butter. So I said, so just have butter. Okay, whatever. But that's what all these questions together. That's why if you go on, and it's only if you go to Eretz Yisrael that you get meals on the plane. But that's why they write on the meals that if the outer seal is broken, then you're not allowed to eat the food, right? Because then we're afraid that the steam went in straight through, right? But Yeah?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not aware that.
No, but I'm
Can you be more legal as a traveler once you're in the gym and you're a traveler? Like some people say Starbucks, for example. If you're traveling, you hope
Okay, yeah, we could try and get to stop.
vacation kosher, somebody told me. That's a good restaurant, and it says, at least good enough VK.
That sounds right.
Vacation.
Does that go along with no menu, right?
So based on that, so when you're traveling, why don't you just use the microwave? You
Okay.
stand around the place. You look inside, it's relatively clean. Well, can I just put my food uncovered? And
No,
heat it?
because uncovered,
Why?
you're not, because you're cooking in a tray utensil straight.
But what's gonna drip into my food? There's nothing.
The taste, this taste that's in the top of the microwave from
You
the
have to
previous
double
person. No, single cover, that would be a single would be enough there. Now, the only thing, that's okay. How you deal with it practically is, well, you could kash in the microwave. Yeah, you can kash in the microwave. But we're trying to stay sticky. What?
I know you said you're not so sold on microwave
What?
because they don't get hot enough to.
The Starcade is very lenient. Where's Rabbi Helms? The Starcade is pretty lenient as far as I know with microwaves. Yes.
Small elaboration on a cruise hypothetically. Or on Friday, you instruct somebody in the kitchen, eat your meal, whether they want a heated meal or Shabbos. You're doing stuff throughout Shabbos anyway. That considered eat for me also.
It's a problem. How many Jews are on the ship? That makes a big difference. Can you what?
Probably not a lot.
Okay, so that would really meaning, can you have hot water from a hotel? You're staying in a hotel on Shabbos. Are you allowed to take the hot water like they have in the lobby? They have hot water. Are you allowed to take hot water on Shabbos? So in Shulchan Aruch, we're always worried about if a guy heats up hot water, even if he says it's for himself, we're afraid that he added some for on behalf of a yid. So that's the way we pass it. So, but if it's a majority of, well, not even a majority, it has to be like very few. It would have to be very few yidden in the hotel, and then we're not so worried about it. Because then the guy's just putting on the hot water for his
They
own
don't
sake.
they don't know you're there. You leave to the room. The guy works in the kitchen doesn't know.
So if it's only one yid, then you're fine either way.
Coffee makers in the hotel.
Yeah, he's saying how does he know who's outside the kitchen?
No, but they'll if there's a lot of Jews running around on Shabbos, the workers will know, I'm assuming. And even if they don't know, if they say that our customers are, so we have to make it for our customers are Yidden. So then they're making it on behalf of a Yid, even if they don't know per se that they're doing it for a Yid. What are you saying?
Coffee makers in the hotel rooms.
Oh,
They come with pods.
okay.
I had to rephrase it. Can I tell a course here, and so I'd like to have my frozen dinners heated up for shop, brought to me for shops.
No, it's pre-cooked. I'm assuming it's pre-cooked. No, but he wants it to be heated up on Shabbos. Just heat it up on Shabbos? I don't know. That's not simple. That would not be simple to have them do that.
Better not.
but you gotta eat on Shabbos, so you gotta figure out.
I asked, I've been before you, bring me the meal, the frost, like for breakfast or something. Have it for
Okay, so there might be ways out of it where you can give it to him before Shabbos and you tell him, do me a favor, just leave this in the side of the oven that it just stays warm, right? And then if he decides to warm it up on his own, and then, okay, so then these are all, you have to work that out. You have to work that out with the,
on electric keys, on Shabbos, on the you have some close years.
okay, so that's, okay, so what's sticking with the ships thing or hotels thing, there's a few issues with hotels that it's becoming very, very difficult to be in a hotel on Shabbos and a ship on Shabbos for a few reasons. One, the hallway lights stay dimmed and then they get lighter as you walk in the hallway. That's a big issue, right? Now, if you know, okay, that's most of the time LED nowadays, so that's a Rabbanon, and then you're not doing it.
Why is that such a big issue? You don't care. If it was dim, I keep walking.
So it really depends how dark it is in the hallway. If the lights are off in the hallway and you turning them on, you're going to be happy with it, then that's a real problem. That's a real big problem. If it's just light, if it's light enough to walk and it gets a little lighter, so then yeah, Maker I think would be okay, especially with LED. I could tell you, I heard from Rabbi Saul Rajan from Rosh heard of us when he was talking about he had a neighbor who had the I'm sure that's pretty common around there. You have the neighbor with the sensor light. So by the way, most places can say that as long as you don't care for those lights to be on, you could walk by. Yeah, it's better to cross the street if you can, but if not, not. So he had an eitzah where he took an extension cord and took an oscillating fan, plugged it in, and just moved the whole Shabbos and kept his light on. I don't know if he did it or he said you should do it, but okay. So bring a fan with you to a hotel, keep it outside in the hallway, and keep it going back and forth, and you can take care of that issue. But
The problem in the room because the air conditioning turns off.
the air conditioning in the room is also an issue, right? The air conditioning goes on and off when you open the door. It's a problem. It's a problem.
House? No.
No, it's automatic. It's an automatic.
If you don't put money-
Jeremy, you're
Outside, how much is power?
No, if your house, you can leave the house, your AC will keep running. Theirs has a sensor. You leave the room, it turns off, even if you set it down.
Not by now. Don't say it from action. Say it. So you
But then there's a problem.
one cover, it drops into the top cover. In the middle, is Zayn. At the top, it goes through the Zayn to the bottom of the place.
No, you have one hit cover and then
In the oven, the shingles, the pipes inside the oven. You heat up the oven, it starts to drip. You drip some stuff on the top cake, and you have a cover. So now there's this inside the cover. So now there's Zayn in between, or whatever. There's like, because the thing's cooking.
yeah, but not it's gonna be wrong. It's two layers. It's fine. As far as I know, that's what they said. But we didn't even get to that. The Ramah says, by the way, I have to say it, just going back to the kasha, that the Ramah says you should not rely on this, that the taste doesn't go from one metal to the other metal without liquid. The Ramah says, do not rely on that lichatchila. To which Ramosha Feinstein says, you only don't have to rely on that. What the Ramah means is that if you actually have two foods right next to each other in different pots, but if it's just one pot, like a dairy inside a meat oven or meat in a dairy oven, then that's not what the Ramah means. That's the way Ramosha understands it. But lichatchila, it wouldn't be, you should not take treif and kosher, put them right on top of each other. We're afraid that liquid somehow will get there in between the layers. So I don't know what the kashrus places do that they give a sharing to. They do it on planes on purpose. I mean, they do it lechatchila like that, and maybe they know that they don't pile it up. I don't know. It's the guy who- yeah, okay, but what? Even if it's overwrapped, triple wrapped already, then they're not. So maybe they, I don't know. Maybe they say the metal. I don't know.
Those trays, they slide out.
It is triple wrapped anyway. If you have your thing double wrapped, the trick is not on a rack, not sitting on top of your thing.
No, we'll talk about the top and the bottom. Yeah.
There's saying there's something around the tray food also.
No, lav dafka, but no, then you would only need one cover. We're pretty pressure that the trade food is open.
Maybe something will trip down.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, the one says if you have food on top of the second graph, then don't allow. Here you don't even have food on top, it's like, I'm scared that maybe. food-
Okay, maybe, I hear. Okay, yes.
Just circle back, are you allowed to ask somebody on Shabbos to let you in with their own?
Oh, so I'm sorry, good, thank you, you gotta keep my ADHD, you gotta keep me on where I'm supposed to be going with this. Yeah, so then another thing is the rooms that lock. So can you ask a guy? L'chatchila, you should not rely on asking a guy. We don't want you to be asking a guy to do the rabbanos. On it's rabbinic because it's electric. We pass on the electricity is from the rabbanon, not from the Torah. So you theoretically would be able to ask a guy to do what the rabbanon in order to get you in your room. But if you have a way out, so then the way out would be better. Which I personally haven't had the situation too many times, but I would put a shoe in the doorway and leave it unlocked. I put my valuables, which I Baruch Hashem don't have too many, so I put it into the safe, including the tefillin, right? And then what are they taking from me? I got nothing else, nothing really for them to take. So I believe you should try. The only problem is the security comes by and sees the door open and they close the door. Then you don't have a choice. You put the duct tape.
Even duct tape.
Everybody can. You have that. Well, you have that video that went around a couple of years ago. Everybody see it with the guy with the string. Okay, yeah. So that was. He ties it. Whatever. Somebody must have seen it.
The Starbucks, if you're traveling, if you're vehicle.
Okay, so so on that same inning. So before we continue, there is something called bishul akum, which is that even if it's kosher food, a guy cooks it for you, that is not allowed. Okay. But it's only bishul akum if it can't be eaten raw, meaning it has to be cooked, and if the food is chashuv enough to be served on a king's table. Now, king's table we mean not by snack when the king is watching football on Sunday. We mean by like a state dinner, right? So it has to be a chashuv food. So then you have to make sure, like people go to breakfast in these hotels and they want to take the eggs, right? Eggs, according to most, have bishul akum issues because eggs do get served at nice breakfasts and they can't be eaten raw. Mayonnaise, but they're not cooking it, right? So you're not having. Whoever gives the hechsher to it is making sure if it's being cooked. I don't know if it's cooked or not. Whoever's giving the hechsher has to be responsible to make sure that it's being cooked. But cooked eggs in a hotel are a no-go. And 7-Eleven, I don't know if they have them here, but I know by us they do. And people buy the eggs and they think that they're allowed. It's not allowed. There is an opinion that says that maybe eggs are allowed because some people do drink eggs raw. We actually had that. And the shir that he helped start, we were talking about where the eggs are muksa, and the fellow was sitting there and says, I eat raw eggs. And I said, okay, show us. So he went into the kitchen, he got an egg, he put it in, I think he put salt.
You put a little bit of salt.
Put some salt and he drank the egg. They weren't that.
Wow.
But, so maybe he could eat the eggs, maybe. So fish used to also have bishul akum issues, right? Because fish can't be eaten raw and it's served on a king's table. So if you give your raw fish to be cooked, then that's a problem. However, sushi is a little bit changing that. I haven't seen that any person can come out and say that sushi is enough of a reason to say that fish is eaten raw and therefore it's not a problem with bishul akum. So you have to be careful.
What about the waffle maker?
But what raw fish, right? So you can compare it to. But the problem is that nowadays they don't. So that's.
What about the waffle maker? The waffle maker.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it. Herring doesn't help it though. Herring's also raw fish, but herring is it's covered, so that's considered like it's cooked.
Waffle maker.
Okay, so the waffle maker in the hotel. I personally would think that a waffle maker in a hotel, if you see the box, should be okay, but the people in kashrus say not.
Really?
So yeah, that's.
Every time I go, they always have the same brand.
Yeah, you know what's interesting thing? It's interesting. What is the whole gezeira of bishul akum? And pas akum is another one. Bread. What's that? So pas akum. You're not allowed to. Chachamim made a gezeira that you're not allowed to eat the bread baked by a guy in his house because you may marry his daughter. And what's with the kashrus?
I've seen people put bacon in their waffle.
Okay, so what? Yeah, but Yeah, but the question is, do they bring bacon with them to the hotel?
No, they take hotel bacon from the.
Oh, they have. I never saw bacon in a hotel breakfast. Maybe I don't know. I'm not so experienced, but
They're not that mouthful.
You have to go to fancy.
I was saying right here. No,
Bacon is very good.
no, the cheap hotels have the breakfast. The ones that I go to don't have the breakfast. No. Yeah. So I personally think that it should be okay. Meaning the point is that you're allowed to go eat bread according to Halacha in a guy's house. If not for this Gezerah D'Rabbanan, you're good. Now this does not apply nowadays because nowadays they can make anything taste like anything. So that all those rules go out, and you would need kashrus. But seemingly, if they have the same breakfast every day, and you see the waffle mix being there, so that
You're making it yourself.
correct. But the question, they're afraid that maybe you put in a non-kosher one. That I can't. I will just tell you, that's what the kashrus places say. The fresh fruit, some of the kashrus places say also you can't do it. I don't understand that one either. The fresh fruit in grocery stores, most places can say you can go take the fresh cut fruit. That's fine. Cut fruit from a grocery store, you'd be allowed to. Although some places are machmir because they've seen that the guy takes and cuts the sandwich. To me, that's a hashash rachuk. But yeah.
In the waffle maker, kasher itself is bacon.
Oh, so then that gets to the coffee maker. Well, we'll get to the coffee.
Let's say, look, 7-Eleven, kosher, have an open container, and it's forever kosher. Are you righteous? That's
Yeah. So now, if you go, I don't know if that's so negay. You real talking. 1 second. So then you don't really need a. According to the OU, you should have an OU, but b'diavad, you don't need a hefsher on milk. So that's why I don't know. According to that, the shiloh is not a shiloh. What? You need a chaysa. So we had this in Farakah. In your time, we had this in the deli. So the deli, and it was called the Dowdy Deli in Farakah. Right now, Baruch Hashem was taken over by Yinin, and the prices went up accordingly. But so they used to have only Chalav Yisrael milk, but it doesn't have a seal. Every food at the minimum has to have a seal. Has to have one seal. Meats, fish have to have double seal. Wine has to have double seal. Every other food has to have double seal. Milk has to have a seal. So these guys are serving only Chalav Yisrael milk. My father's who said you can't eat it. You can't drink that milk because there's no seal. A friend of mine was there. He saw them putting Chalav stam milk into the Chalav Yisrael. Yeah, a friend of mine, and he saw them replacing it. Now I have to tell you a funny nice. Okay, I know somebody who gives a hefsher in a 7-Eleven, Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know, either one in Flatbush. In the front of the store, I hope I say this over correctly. In the front of the store, they have Chalav Yisrael. In the back of the store, they have Chalav stam, or the opposite. They ran out of Chalav stam milk. So the guy caught his workers taking the Chalav Yisrael milk, putting it into the Chalav stam just to make sure that they had both types. So, you guys crazy? You're taking the milk that's double the money, putting it into the cheap milk. That's anything to do it the other way. So you see, that the Chachamim were not crazy. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but you see that's what happened. So that's what you need. You need a seal. You need a seal on all foods. So I would say if you're doing Chalav Yisrael and it's in a goyish place, then it's a problem. Even if the place is open 24 hours, if they have the ability to lock the door, then you're done.
There's no Chalav Yisrael in travel. You don't have to keep
If you don't drink coffee, then it's not such a problem. But black coffee. Oh, so black coffee on a plane, most places can say it's okay. I think Rabbi Belsky's was not pro the black coffee. But in the Welt, people take black coffee and they have it anywhere. The Starbucks issue, very bekitzer, the Starbucks issue is that the way they wash their kalim when in the stores that have tray is that they'll put a run without soap. Meaning if you're washing dishes with soap, so then the soap automatically makes, each one of these is a share unto itself. So we're trying to do this very fast. The soap makes the taste from the tray taste bad, so it's not going to penetrate into the kosher. In what we call Starbucks, it doesn't help if you don't drink coffee to these things. The Starbucks, they wash it once without any soap, so then that can make what?
It's only in the actual stores. If you have a kiosk,
they don't have it because they don't wash there. So the kiosks, the ones in the airport and all that, you don't have to. But how do you know when I mean, McDonald's, can you go drink the coffee at McDonald's? Yeah, but whoever investigated McDonald's, see how they wash the dishes. So, okay, but it's accepted.
Why would they wash the dishes without putting in soap? It's gonna come out.
No, the rinse cycle is very hot. They first rinse it, and then there's detergent that goes in the machine. But it already became
It's hot enough. It's hot enough. But so what do they mean by traveling? Because even the CRC, Chicago, who came out, they're the ones that came up with this chumrah, are maida, that this is it's a chumrah. And the basic reason they say it is that you would never do this in your house. Nobody's washing meat and dairy together with soap in the same kitchen at the same time, right? So if you're not doing it at home, they say, so why should you do it in a Starbucks, right? But the bottom line is, it's a non-Jew doing it. And if the push comes to shove, it's mutter. I think according to all opinions, it's going to be mutter. So when you're traveling and you're really desperate for a coffee, so then with anytime you go, when you travel, you have a shasat chag. Now that turns into a lot of other bad shasat chags, but that's not in halacha. When you're desperate, you need that coffee. Right now, coffee makers
What about the first cycle? How do you get around that?
Even if it did, it would have to touch the same drop of hot water. It would have to touch the treif and kosher at the exact same time. If it even bounces off one and then hits the other, then it's already a cliche. So then it's really not going to be a problem. A coffee maker's in the room. So
Very, very hot.
saying the hot water is coming out of wherever, right? And then it hit good, but then it hits one thing and then it hits the other. That's when it bounces off. It's a cliche. What? That's true, but if you can have tremendous heat, that if it comes off a cliche, it already downgrades. So once it hits the metal, yeah, but I don't think it fills with water. I don't know.
Even if it does,
If it fills with water,
Yeah.
that's a klirish.
it's not boiled in the same.
Well, the water's boiling hot.
Okay,
Boiling in the boiler. Klirish is involved.
okay, so then, just quickly, because I don't know, if these guys are Michael, I'll keep going. I don't know. Okay, they'll be all right. Okay, so the coffee maker in the room, if you see that the coffees that they have there are unflavored, so then there's no problem. If you're not sure what to do, so then run it through a cycle. There's a machlokes whether you're allowed to kasher with other liquids other than water. The ma'isa push comes to shove, we paskin that it's mutter to kasher with other liquids. The question is coffee considered another liquid, or is it really water with a little bit of color, a little bit of flavor? What? Yeah.
It doesn't need schmuck.
What? Oh, so that's the chocolates. There's two types of chocolates. Switzerland, I don't think it's nagay here because I mean, imagine most people are lucky enough that they could eat Hershey, so they don't have this issue. But maybe Pesach. One of the chocolate places in Switzerland. I don't remember which one. It's a Schmerlin. Is the one with bad? I think there's two.
They fixed it, but it used to be schmuck.
So they could not kasher with water because it would break the machines. So what they did is they ran it through a cycle of chocolate and they sold that as not kosher or not chol yisrael, and then the next round became kosher, right? So some of the kashrus agencies, like when you hear from people like, oh, this kashrus agency, maybe you should rely on it. Not one of the coolers that they would do is because a lot of these factories don't want to shut down for 24 hours. You never,
Stargates.
yeah,
Never kasher chocolate machine. They don't let.
they don't have challah. So what do you do? So you kasher with chocolate.
It's chocolate.
Yeah, okay, so Hanukhanami, so that's the way
What
we
about
pass.
Agolab and Lake Paris? How do we get around that?
So they're being, I
Agolab
think
and
they-
Lake Paris are big machlokes.
I think
No,
they-
is there stock? Is there stock? No, how do you do it trade? You can't be. The original thing wasn't trade. There wasn't tarfus there before.
They actually chocolate just make chocolate. They don't add any flavor in there.
Right, but
I
let's
mean,
say
if
somebody
maybe
gives
didn't have
called
to be
sorry,
kosher.
you need Hagala and Lake Paris. It's a difficult thing.
Yeah, I think they, I don't know if I can't speak.
The make on Hagala and Lake Paris.
Whoever did the chocolate did. Okay, just quickly, just with just an interesting, when you see where halacha changes, where you cannot compare different psakim that you get in different halacha, which is, so we discussed tefillas haderech, right? So I think one of the things was tefillas haderech on an airplane. So I think what's accepted is when you're going down the runway. Shamazam Rabbi says that you should say tefillas haderech when you get to a height of, if you would fall, it would be dangerous. which I think that's right on the ground, right? But I don't know if he means in the plane or out of the plane. I don't know what he means.
When you feel start to go up.
Yeah, so meaning that's the way he says in the Halacha, that's what he says that when you at a height where if you fall, you're gonna have a problem. What?
Planes crash on the ground.
I don't know. Okay, but getting to the shiurim, what's the shiur of Tilas Adar? Now there's 4 or 5 different shiurim that what we call the parsa, which is really 4 mil, which is approximately 3 miles and change, right? So the Chachamim gave a few things that where they said 3 parts, the time it takes to travel a parsa, right? So they mean walking, do they mean by car, do they mean by plane, do they mean by train? Like the person we discussed train, because that's what they had. So when the halacha is that when you travel a parsa, does that mean 3 miles or the equivalent, or does it mean 72 minutes? Right? So there we pass in that it goes with the distance. So once you're a parsa out of the city, then you say Tfilas Derech again. If there's no house, you asked about going to Lakewood saying Tfilas Derech. Many don't, because there are houses or buildings most of the way from Brooklyn to Lakewood. So some do, some don't. What? The question. So on the Verazon, the question is it 3 parsa from one house to another?
Do you say?
Right? Do I say? I don't know. And most of it lately, I know I used to, and then I was with the rabbi in the car. I said, "What are you saying? Tfilas Derech to Lakewood?" So okay, he convinced me out of it. But interesting enough, I was like to the driver of David Cohen in the summer. So there's a whole issue: should one person have everybody in mind with Tfilas Derech, or should each person say it individually? So the way he did it, so I thought, okay, I'm going to drive with David Cohen to a class. I wasn't going to go to the class, but because I had an opportunity to drive, I decided I'm going to go to the class. And of course, my luck, he had laryngitis. Okay, so now, so I was stuck in the front seat. I couldn't make phone calls because I'm driving with David Cohen and his wife. They're sitting in the back. I was the most boring drive. I couldn't listen to anything. I couldn't talk on the phone, nothing. And okay, I thought this is my big opportunity. Either way, he said Tfilas Derech out loud, and his wife repeated after him because he held, and I repeated it too because he said that one person is not enough. So. But that's what seems most places can say that each person should say their own Tfilas Derech. Parenthetical. But anyways, so now what about going for a minyan? How far do you have to drive? So it also says a parsa. In the direction that you're going, 72 minutes. Out of the direction is 1 mil, which is 18 minutes. Right? Again, it says a parsa. So
18 minutes walking.
That's the question. Is it 18 minutes any way you try? Is it a time measurement or is it a distance measurement? Right. So if you say that it's a distance measurement, many of us don't have to go to shul, right? But that's not the way it goes, right? It goes with the time. So you, out of your way, you'd have to drive 18 minutes to go to a minyan, right? If it's in the direction that you're going, then you'd have to drive 72 minutes. The same thing would apply, and this is a big misunderstanding. I actually had somebody ask this to me on Friday, which is that if you're traveling, you don't have water. The first misunderstanding is that you can just keep the bread in a bag and you don't have to wash your hands. That is not the halacha. The halacha is that you have to cover your hands, not the bread. The bread is not the issue. It's your hands that are the issue. So you have to cover your hands. The reason why this is what? Because your hands need the netila. Your hands, and you can't wash it, then you cover your hands, but it's almost never negaya because you're required in the direction you're going. You're required to go for 72 minutes till you get water. I don't know any trip anywhere where you're not going to have water within 72 minutes, or if it's out of the way, 18 minutes out of the way. And now, b'shas hadchak, going with the coffee, you can even use coffee and soda to wash your hands. So I really don't see any heter, but as far as I know, unless you're on a ship in the middle of nowhere and they ran out of water, which then you're going to have a bigger issue.
What if the seatbelt sign is on for 2 hours?
I would say you can ask the stewardess for a bottle of water. Right? Now, a bottle of water you have to pour out all at one time. I mean, not one time, but you can't pour it in small amounts. You have to make sure you have enough to wash it. Right? Now, one area where we say that we go the kula is that you're not supposed to travel on a Friday more than you're not supposed to travel on a Friday more than a parsa. So if you go with a distance measurement, that means you can't really go anywhere on a Friday, right? Because if you're going to say it's 3 miles, you can't travel more than 3 miles. So that the place can say that it goes with the amount of time that it would take to walk 3 parsa, which would be approximately, they say 3.5 hours is what the place can say. So more traveling on a Friday more than 3.5 hours should not be allowed. Although we say nowadays they're more makel, and the reason why you're not allowed to travel on a Friday is because they were afraid that you're going to come late for Shabbos and they're not going to be prepared for you because they didn't have communication. So you show up at a guy's house on a Friday afternoon, say, I don't have any food for you for Shabbos. So again, it's a lack of Kabbalah Shabbos. Nowadays that we have communication, this really is not applicable. According to the Ikr Halacha, it's not applicable. Although I know many Chashuvim that will not travel past Chatzos on a Friday. Then one other last interesting thing is going to the bathroom. So if you have to go to, this is a travel shot. I think that happens to everybody, right? Right? You gotta go to the bathroom. You have to go to the bathroom, and the halacha is that you can't hold it in for the time that it takes to go a parsa. Then you cannot daven. So now we say that that's a time measurement. So it would be 72 minutes. If you cannot hold back from going to the bathroom 72 minutes, then even if you did daven or you made a bracha, then it doesn't count, and you have to repeat it. Now, what the place can say, and how this is how contemporary halacha could change based on, I don't know if it's called technology, which is that they say that we're so used to having bathrooms pretty much wherever we go, which is the same reason why you have to always wait for water. So we don't know how to hold ourselves in. When we think we can't hold it in, we really can hold it in. We're just so spoiled in many ways, but in this way too, we're just so spoiled that we think we can't hold it in. Meaning back then, they could hold it in for a very, very long time. Us, we're more spoiled. So no, don't practice. No, don't practice it. But anyway, so that's another example of measurement. Okay, everybody should be matzliach, and I hope. Okay, we're ready. I'm sorry.
I'll get you that.